Brock is the first gym leader in the original red, green, blue, and yellow games. He packs a punch if a team comes into him unprepared or unaware of typing advantages or disadvantages in the game. He's the stepping stone to the rest of the game, but the first roadblock you have to face going forward. For most casual players of Pokemon, he's just the first guy forward, and there are ways to prepare for him and win. You can buy tons of healing items and outlive whatever you can dish out. You can start off with a different starter Pokemon, but what if you didn't have unlimited healing? What if you didn't start off with a Pokemon that had an advantage against him? What if you kept grinding down to a minimum? Today, I'm going to talk about the difficulty of Brock's Gym in Generation 1. To begin, I'm going to get stats out of the way really quickly because this boss fight will be easier or harder depending on the kinds of Pokemon you have access to and their stat spreads. Attack and defense are the stats that modify damage for these types: rock, ground, bug, poison, ghost, fighting, flying, and normal. Speed is the stat that modifies your critical hit ratio, as well as affecting your ability to go first or second in battle. Special is the stat that deals with the damage taken and dealt with special moves: Psychic, Water, Fire, Grass, Electric, Dragon, and Ice. Brock has Rock and Ground type Pokemon, which are incredibly bulky in their defenses, able to shrug off most physical moves with only a little bit of damage. Rock type's special stat, on the other hand, is pitiful in comparison, meaning that they're going to take more damage from special moves of the same base power. Another factor to keep in mind for hurting this Pokemon is damage effectiveness of physical types that you'll have moves available for, which are normal, poison, flying, and fighting types, and depending on which game you have, and the special type attacks that you also have at your disposal, which are Fire, Grass, Water, Electric, and Psychic. Rock and Ground type Pokemon are incredibly resilient, taking only half damage from all the physical attack types, except for Poison, Bug, and Fighting, which get a quarter damage, normal damage, and double damage respectively. On the special side of things, however, there's much more leeway. Grass and Water both deal 4 times the amount of damage to Brock's Pokemon. Psychic deals normal amounts of damage, and Fire does half damage. Electricity, on the other hand, is completely nullified. With Brock's special stats so low and very obvious weaknesses to Grass and Water, the answer to this battle is relatively simple: just use Grass and Water. However, with the choice of 3 different starters with varying different power spikes and movesets, it isn't always the best choice to choose the Water and Grass starters. And in this case, even the Grass starter doesn't learn a damaging Grass move until level 13. Now that all the stats and move effectiveness is out of the way, I can finally start on talking about the Pokemon. The player character has the ability to hold up to 6 Pokemon on their team at a time, and at later points in the game this is incredibly useful as it gives your team the ability to be rounded out instead of having only one main Pokemon driving everything forward. However, at this point in the game, your choices on types of Pokemon are incredibly limited. In Route 1 and 22, which are the routes around Viridian City, you have the ability to catch Rattata, Pidgey, Spearow, Nidorans male and female, and Mankey if you're playing Yellow version. In Route 2 and Viridian Forest, you have access to Bug, Poison-type Pokemon, Caterpie and Weedle and their evolved forms Metapod and Kakuna, as well as Pikachu, again, if you're not playing Yellow version. Of those 11 different Pokemon you can choose from, 2 have no moves available to them, Metapod and Kakuna. 5 of them only have a weak physical move that's resisted by Brock's team. 1 of them has a move that Brock's team is completely immune to, and the other 3 can gain a fighting move, but only in Yellow version. So it looks like you're at an impasse. If you pick the wrong starter, or the wrong version of the game, you're going to be in for an incredibly rocky time with this first gym leader. What's nice about this variety of Pokemon, despite not having incredibly strong moves or super effective moves at their disposal, is that there is strategy that can be employed by most of them in some version of the game. In Red, Blue, and Green, there are no fighting moves available to any Pokemon at this point in the game, unless tens of hours are put into grinding out levels on incredibly weak Pokemon. So you have to use other strategies available to you. The easiest one that stands out is from your time in Viridian Forest: Poison. Poison Sting doesn't hit hard at all. There's no getting around that, but what it does do is offer up the chance to poison an enemy Pokemon, dealing 1/16 of that Pokemon's maximum health and damage to it after every turn. This Poison Sting strategy, when mixed with other forms of damage, can dramatically speed up the fight against Brock if you have no other kinds of moves at your disposal. The benefit of this is that in Pokemon Red and Blue, you have access to Weedles, which have Poison Sting as their only physical move at this point in the game. Or if you decided to level up a Nidoran, you'll have Poison Sting at level 14. However, if you're going to go the route of leveling something other than your starter up to level 14 to guarantee a victory, you might as well pick up a Caterpie, which has a relatively quick experience gain rate and has the ability to turn into a Butterfree at level 10. Butterfree at level 10 still hasn't gotten used to its new body, but at level 12 it gains the ability to use Confusion, a Psychic move that has the ability to confuse the attacking Pokemon. Attacking Brock's special stat is the safest bet, and though Butterfree isn't the strongest Pokemon in the game by any stretch of the imagination, the benefit it does give at this point in the game for its relative ease is incredible. With Red, Blue, and Green, if you choose the wrong starter for this first gym, and you haven't been leveling up to your fullest, or not filling out your team roster, you will definitely struggle, as despite doing more damage with Ember than Scratch, you'll be in a game of attrition, fishing for a burn to kill the Geodude and Onix before you get taken out. If you decide to avoid leveling up a specific Pokemon for one of the strategies I listed and you want to instead opt for the more difficult choice, just brute forcing your way through, I do have a suggestion. Potions. The only downside to being reliant on potions, though, is that potions cost money, and there isn't an unlimited supply of cash at this portion of the game. So, let's say you decide to buy potions and just heal up at Brock when fighting him. Forgoing Pokeballs entirely, your battle will be based on how high of a level you are when you fight him. If you're at too low of a level, your moves aren't going to hurt him enough to be able to withstand the damage coming back to you. And though you can use potions to buoy your HP at this point in the game, each potion you use is money lost. You don't lose anything if you completely run out of money, but what does happen is that you'll be unable to buy any more items, potions, Pokeballs, and otherwise, limiting your choices at this point in the game. So that's all the strategy on paper, so now let's see it in action. So to make sure this fight is as challenging as possible, I'm choosing Charmander, since he won't have any type advantage against Brock in the slightest. I'm going to shy away from most of the fights and avoid grass as much as possible in this run. So, we fight the rival, and I'm trying to preserve as much money as possible, so I'm avoiding a loss here. Thankfully, the win is easy, and I'm not risked for losing any money. I leave town and fight a couple of Pokemon, and then it happens. I forget to keep track of my HP, and lose 50% of my money by fading to a Pidgey. I keep moving on. I'm out an extra potential 5 potions, and I'm worried. I make it to Viridian without a hitch this time, though. I grab Oak's item, I give it back, head back to Viridian, grab the secret potion, and go into the forest. I skirt around the outskirts of the tall grass, not wanting to get into any random encounters if I can avoid it, and I see the first bug catcher. I wasn't sure if he was skippable or not, so I did the fight and quickly realized that I might die to a poison sting if the poison lands, and started worrying about using up more of my potions. Thankfully, my Charmander learns Ember, a move super effective against any bug-type Pokemon, and I feel like the rest of the forest will be easy. There's a mandatory bug catcher at the end of the forest with a level 9 Weedle, so I dispatch of him pretty easily with my newfound power in Ember, after accidentally hitting the move Scratch. Overall, the forest is easy to clear, and I make my way into Pewter City to heal, buy potions, and challenge Brock's gym. Upon entering Brock's gym, there's a path you could take to avoid the trainer and go straight to Brock. I completely forget this and run my face straight into that trainer, risking valuable potions and a potential loss without more grinding. I get lucky that the Sandshrew misses sand attacks so many times, or else I would have been in a position where I couldn't win without wasting more of my resources. I leave to heal up at the Pokemon Center, then up next is Brock. My Charmander at the moment is level 12, on par with this Geodude and weaker than his Onix by 2 levels. I don't have a ton of resources on hand as I'm heading in to fight him, but that's okay. I'm hoping 8 potions should suffice to handle this fight. I'm going in fishing for burns, which will weaken his physical attack, and the fire damage, which targets his special, really hits the weak points of Geodude. And there's the burn, 10% chance! He has a full heal. I didn't realize he would have full heals. Not once did that cross my mind. And it hit at the end of his turn, which is even more strange to me. I use Growl since my chance at dropping his attack with a burn has just been cured away. But with the Growl, each Geodude tackle's only doing 4 damage now, which is very nice since that gives me 7 more turns to deal damage before I'm forced to use a potion. As luck would have it, the Geodude uses Defense Curl, a move that props up a useless stat for getting hit by Ember, which gives me free turns without taking damage. I make sure to keep up the pressure with Ember, and after a few more singes, it's gone. When Onix comes out, I time my embers not to coincide with Bide, and I use that time to growl and heal up, ensuring that if Onix uses Tackle, its actual scary move, that it will at least do reduced damage to me. I keep embering the Onix, dealing as much damage as possible to him, and avoiding screeches, which could be a death sentence for me if they had landed. I end up getting another incredibly lucky burn, forcing Brock's AI into another full heal to cleanse the status, which gives me another free turn without taking damage. The screeches start to pile on and I miss an ember, making me fear for that tackle that Brock has in his back pocket. The tackle he hasn't used just yet, but thankfully even when it does come out, I've growled enough to cancel out the screeches, and I ensure that I can close out this win. And that was it. It definitely was more challenging than other gym leaders, I guess, but it didn't feel that hard, to be honest. Maybe I had luck on my side with all the missed screeches and bide turns being used for my advantage. I mean, when I started writing this guide, it was because I knew that Charmander had this big disadvantage. It was so great that later generations of games fixed it by giving him a Steel-type move to attack Brock super effectively. But now, well, that was still doable. And I only used one potion throughout the fight, and that was just because I was a little worried about the bide damage. So why buff up everything around this gym to make it easier, when it's completely doable by someone who literally just rushed past everything to win? So I tried again, making sure to be only level 9 this time when I saw Brock, just strong enough to have Ember. I find Oak, I get starter, beat rival, grab item, go back to Oak, go to pick up tree potion, skip bug catcher I fought last time, fight the level 9 Weedle with the level 7 Charmander, win after using a potion and an antidote because I was scared of dying and losing half of my money again, fight a Metapod, learn Ember, make a Deputer, buy 10 potions with my money, avoid the trainer in Brock's gym, and finally challenge Brock. This time I'm level 9, 3 levels below the Geodude and 5 below the Onix. If it was a fair fight somehow before, it's definitely not this time. The Geodude is much tougher this time around, dealing around 7 points of damage to me with each tackle, a substantial amount of damage, and I definitely need to be worried about critical hits, as his kill range is now up to 14 HP. The other side is, crits don't happen for Geodude too often, since he's such a slow Pokemon, so I can at least take a little comfort there. I growl at him a couple times to try and soften up his attack stat so that each strike isn't murdering me, and he bolsters his defense with Defense Curl. Nice. I start burning him, and his curls aren't ending, giving me tons of opportunity to hit him for free. Thankfully, when he does strike back, it only deals a much more manageable 4 damage to me. Easy to work around. I take a second when Geodude's on death's doorstep to heal up preemptively for the Onix, unsure of what the right option is for making sure that Geodude deals the least amount of damage to me, so that I can be at max health for the next fight. Thankfully, the Geodude uses Defense Curl again on my healing turn, so I can take it free of charge. Onix is up next. I'm at maximum HP, and I have 16 more charges of Ember before I'm out, and have to scratch the Onix instead. I get a lucky dodge against the Screech right off the gate, and get some free damage against him. The next turn, he tackles me and deals 7 damage as well. Unlike with the Geodude, however, if the Screech lands on me, my defense is dropped, which will make subsequent attacks deal twice as much damage to me. Tackle will essentially do 14 damage if I can't take out the Onix fast enough. I go for a risky Ember after the Screech lands, and luckily the Onix goes for a Bide, meaning that his damage will be fixed to whatever I deal to him, making the Screech essentially moot. I take this time to growl at the Onix, 1 to mitigate the hazards of the Screech, and 2 to keep the damage taken by Bide down to a minimum, and he screeches again, putting me on the back foot, but I take the risk and still attack, fishing for a burn, a bide, or another screech or a miss. If I can take this Onix out, it's going to be worth it. He bides, and I make a critical hit, taking 14 damage from that charged up bide. If I hadn't healed up right when I saw it happen, I would have died. It would have done the perfect amount of damage to take me out. After that, I risk everything, going for full damage, even though I have a pretty good assumption that if Onix hits me after the next Screech, I can potentially die. The taste of victory in my mouth is so palpable, and I take out the Onix, gaining 2 levels for this triumph. This time around, it was more satisfying and much more of a challenge, but I still didn't expect to win. I didn't expect to go in under-leveled and just use a single attacking move to win that fight. I didn't expect to only need to use 2 potions to handle such a tough boss. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of disappointed. I had this grand idea in the back of my head that Brock was this incredibly challenging trainer that placed Charmander in this position where it needed to be over-leveled to handle him easily. But that wasn't the case. In fact, if I hadn't bought potions at all, just the ones I get for free throughout the game would have been enough for me for the whole run. I only used 3 potions and an antidote the entire run. If Brock was this easy, why make so many concessions to make him even easier in Pokemon Yellow? In Pokemon Yellow version, instead of having your pick of a starter, you're given a Pikachu, which mirrors Ash from the Pokemon anime. Pikachu has a huge advantage against Pidgey and Spearow in the first couple of routes because of its electric type attacks, but Brock has Pokemon completely immune to that kind of damage. Honestly, without the nerfs to Brock's levels in Yellow version, Pikachu might not be able to cut it. But that's irrelevant, because now there have been changes to movesets that make a huge difference in how effective certain Pokemon are. You want to use a fighting type Pokemon? You've got Mankey at your disposal now, with low kick at level 9. Or you can use a Nidoran to double kick the Geodudes at level 12. Want to still use Butterfree? Do it. You learn Confusion at level 10, right when it evolves. Want to still Poison Sting? Well, too bad there aren't any Weedle in Yellow, so don't. Plus, Brock has full heals, so Poison probably isn't even the most effective strategy here. But any move that you can use that is stab will be fine, because we've already seen Brock can be a wall, but not a wall that can push back. I know I said it before, but I am a little disappointed. I genuinely believe that Brock would be one of the hardest gym leaders that there's been, just because of his unique typing being so resilient in Generation 1. Sure, I was prepared for the fight, armed to the teeth with potions and knowledge on how to maneuver through his different moves, but it doesn't change the fact that it was doable with little resources and just a small amount of awareness on how certain mechanics work. Maybe he isn't too hard, but he definitely does require some preparedness. I do realize that had I not known when the right times to growl were, I may have risked taking too much damage and losing the fight handily, making people who are just to run their faces into the fight, ember spamming, a shoo-in for a loss. I like Generation 1. And even with this revelation that Brock isn't this tough wall after all, I still respect Brock as a gym leader. Plus, he does get stronger than remakes, so that must count for something. Hello everyone, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. Please drop a like, and if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. If you have any concerns with this video or anything to add as well, just leave a comment. If you know of anyone who you think this may interest, don't hesitate to share it with them. Thank you guys so much, and this is Patrick, signing off.